Listen, I don't know if when I say the name Jesus, I don't know what comes to your mind. I think we have all this different, most of us have sort of a layered thought as to who Jesus is and what he did. And sometimes I think when we hear the name Jesus, we think of something like the little baby Christmas Jesus. We like little baby Christmas Jesus, don't we? Because why? He was born, and on his birthday we get gifts, and that's a win-win for us. And so sometimes when we think of Jesus, we think of the little baby Jesus. Sometimes when we think of Jesus, we think of this almost like he's some rich guy who can give us some stuff, right? So if we just go to him and we ask him in the right way, we ask him for the right things, then Jesus will give me what I want. Sometimes we think of Jesus almost like this homeless wise dude who travels around and uses dude a lot. I don't know why, but no, he travels around and he has all these great wise things to say that if we'll listen, maybe it'll make our life a little bit better. And so for some, Jesus is the guy that we need to listen to because he'll show us how to have a better life. Well, today we're going to look at a side of Jesus that I think is going to surprise some of you. And hang with me because I'm not a heretic, I promise, but we are actually going to look at hangry Jesus today. Now, let me be careful. Like some of y'all are going, how can Jesus be hungry and angry? How can that be? And I'm not saying, hear me, I'm not saying that Jesus sinned. And sometimes we think of someone who's hangry and like, here, take a Snickers because you're being a jerk and you need to stop that. That's not what I'm talking about here. And the Bible's very clear that Jesus never sinned, but yet there's this story I want us to look at, and we're in our series of stories they don't teach in Sunday school, and this story takes place right before the crucifixion. So Jesus has entered Jerusalem, and if you sort of know the history a little bit, you know that he entered and everyone was singing songs of praise, and they were putting palm leaves down on the ground and celebrating that Jesus has arrived. And so right after that and right before the crucifixion, there's this really fascinating interaction that Jesus has with a fig tree. All right, so hang with me. Let's read it. Matthew chapter 21. I'm going to start in verse 18. It says, in the morning, as Jesus was returning to the city, he became hungry. And seeing a fig tree by the wayside, he went to it and found nothing on it but only leaves. And he said to it, may no fruit ever come from you again. And the fig tree withered at once. Now, can I just go on record as saying, to me, this is a strange story, right? This is like, of all the things that Jesus did, you look at this and you go, what's going on here? I mean, he wakes up and he's hungry and he sees a fig tree that doesn't have any figs on it, and he gets mad at the fig tree, right? Or he curses the fig tree and says, you're never going to grow any fruit ever again. And the tree just dies right there on the spot. And you're going, why would Jesus do this, right? What's happening here? And what's even more fascinating to me is that if you look at it, and Matthew tells this story, and Luke tells this story, they each have a little bit of a different details, or not conflicting, but just added details to it. And Luke tells us that that the season for figs was out. So get the story, right? The fig tree is not supposed to be producing figs right now. So Jesus wakes up, he's hungry, he sees a fig tree, it's out of fig season, and yet he still curses the tree because it doesn't have figs when it's not supposed to have figs. And it's one of those, I remember as a child reading this going, what in the world is Jesus doing? Why would you expect a fig tree to make figs when it's not even fig season? Now I want to try to illustrate this a little bit. This is 345 pounds. And I promise I can lift it if I warmed up and I had a belt on and old man wraps because I'm old and I have to do that. And I can probably lift this at least twice and maybe three times on a good day, deadlift, right? That's sort of what the range that I can start to max out. I might get 360 one time, maybe 365 if like everything's good and, you know, my wife's there cheering me on. I don't want to embarrass myself. This is 300. By the way, I saw a 19-year-old clean and jerk this, which is pulling it here and then over his head, which is just like something's wrong with him. But anyway, this is sort of where I am. Well, I'm going to show you a picture of a guy. All right, some of y'all might know him. He's sometimes known as the Mountain. He's from Iceland. He right here, okay, setting a world record for the deadlift, is lifting 1,000. Let me make sure I get the number right. 1,104.5 pounds. Almost 3 of these, right? Think about it. Let me say that number again. 1,104.5. Don't forget the 0.5 because, dude, that's important at that weight. And think about that. And to him, he could probably walk up to this and lift it and go, that's cute, right? To me, if I were to walk over, you were to put this much weight on this bar, I probably would break Ryan's bar. I don't know, Ryan. Ryan, can you get this over your head? No, Ryan's like, come on, man, come try in front of everyone. Anyway, listen, you could put 1,000 pounds on this bar, right? You could take off all these, get the thinner 45s, put it up, load it up, and I could walk up here, and I could go, I'm going to lift this weight. Right here in front of you, it's 1,000 pounds. I believe in myself. I have faith that I can do this. And if I were to bend over to 1,000 pounds and give it everything that I have, you know what would happen? Nothing. Or I would throw my back out, one of the two. I'd either be on the ground flopping around. Now, what if you all said, though, hey, Stephen, we believe in you. Like you started cheering, you can do it, and everyone's chanting, go, go, and you're all getting everything. And we piped in some like Eye of the Tiger going on here, and so it's like we're ready to go, and everyone's cheering, you can do it. And guess what? If I bent down and got picked up on this bar and started trying to lift, you know what would happen? Nothing. And I'm 50 years old, and even if I took as much steroids as he does, I don't know if he takes steroids, but he sort of does, and even if I worked out as much as he did, you know what? No matter what, if you put 1,000 pounds on this bar, I can give everything that I have, and nothing is going to happen. No matter what I think, no matter what you think, no matter what you believe in me, no matter how much I believe in myself, I could have this whole meditation thing going on like, oh, Stephen, you can do anything you want to do, and if you just set your mind on your dreams, you can accomplish it, and if you can just visualize yourself lifting that, you could do it, and I could do all that. You know where that 1,000-pound bar is going? Nowhere. Because this body right here, is not made. I could even pull my son up here who's 19 and his body's like my body at the same age, and together we couldn't lift 1,000 pounds. It's just not what it is. Now he can do it, and if you look, his eyeball's about to pop out right here, and after this picture, his nose starts bleeding. It's awesome. I love anybody who can put that much work into something, but here's my point. You would not expect me, right? You wouldn't expect me to put 1,000 pounds and go, well, Stephen, you're such a failure because you can't deadlift 1,000 pounds. No one who knows anything about weightlifting would ever for a moment think that you know what, Stephen, you just are a failure. I can't believe you let me down. I can't believe you let yourself down by not being able to deadlift at that. You look at me and go, you know what, Stephen might be okay shape for an old dude, and he might be okay for what he is, but no one would expect that. And none of you would look at me if I was having to lift 1,000 pounds and go, well, Stephen, you know what, I curse you. I just give up. What's the point? Because why? I'm not supposed to be able to do that. And so why in the world would Jesus walk up to this fig tree that's not figging out of fig season, right? It doesn't make any sense. Like no one would expect that. No one would. Now I know we have the ability to, like, in our culture, like we can trick plants and we can, create greenhouses, but this is just a regular, normal, everyday fig tree sitting out in the middle of the street, and he's going like, why in the world would Jesus go, fig tree, you're not producing figs, what's wrong with you? And get angry enough that he curses the fig tree and it dies instantly. So Jesus is not petty, and he's not actually angry at the tree, and he's not doing this to show his power. There's something deeper that Jesus is trying to show his disciples and trying to show us. And let's look at verse 20, and we start to begin to see what Jesus is doing. It says, when the disciples saw it, when they saw him curse the tree and the tree die, they marveled, saying, how did the fig tree wither at once? And Jesus answered them, truly I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you will not only do what has been done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, it will happen. And whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive if you have faith. So the disciples ask a what I actually think is a strange question, because they ask, how did you do this, Jesus? And to me, maybe if this story were just the only story, if it were, or even if this were at the beginning of his 3-year earthly ministry, you might go, okay, how could you do this, Jesus? But I want you to think about all the things that the disciples had seen Jesus do to this point. Like, the disciples had watched Jesus walk on water. The disciples had seen Jesus walk up to a guy who was blind, spit in the mud and make little, like mud, spit in the dirt and make mud and rub it in the guy's eye, then tell him to go wash in a pool across town, and he washes and suddenly the guy can see. The disciples had seen Jesus walk up to someone who was lame, had never walked in their life, and say, get up. And the dude gets up, and not only does he get up, he starts doing a little dance, and everyone's going, dude, we've seen him. We walk by him every day. How in the world is he walking? They have seen Jesus do some amazing miracles, like feed a whole crowd of thousands of people with a kid's sack lunch, like raise Lazarus from the dead, who'd been in the tomb for 4 days. And Jesus walks up to the tomb and says, come on, Lazarus, let's go. That's a paraphrase, but it's close, right? Come on, Lazarus, let's go. And Lazarus comes out of that tomb. And now they've seen all of that, and they look at this Jesus go, and their teacher, well, dude, he just yelled at a tree, and the tree died. How in the world can he do that? And I want to say, where have you been the last 3 years, buddy? Have you paid attention? Maybe write something down in your journal so you remember what's happening, because this is like, it's going, what is going on? But it shows something, doesn't it? It shows their blindness like our blindness, that sometimes we miss the entire point. And what Jesus is trying to get his disciples to see is that something is about to change. And if you're not careful, you're going to miss it. Because Jesus is not only just a few days away from the crucifixion, he's a few days away from the resurrection. And what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 days is that Jesus is going to be arrested and put on trial, and he's going to be nailed to a cross. And he's going to take literally the weight of the sins of the world. And they're going to be placed upon his shoulders. And he's going to die, and he's going to die to pay for the weight of the sins of the world. And then but it doesn't end there, right? Because not only does he die to pay for our sins, 3 days later he rises again, and he defeats death. And when he defeats death, everything changes about our relationship with God. Everything is suddenly transformed. And in that moment, we move from ritual to relationship. We move from having to follow the rules and having to be the right person at the right time in the right way, doing the right things, to suddenly we can have a relationship with the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. You see, the Jewish faith was built on rules and ceremony and ritual. It was built on, here's the list of rules, the things that you can do, the things that you can't do. And it covered everything from what happens if you get mold in your house, to what happens when your cow gets stuck in the mud. It covers everything from how you worship, to how much you give, to how you wash your hands, to how you sing your songs. It covers everything. And it was this long list of rules. And if you did the rules, if you followed the rules, if you did everything that God told you to do, then your relationship with God would be great, they thought. And they actually ended up in the midst of all of the rules, completely in the midst of the ritual, completely missing the point. Because you see, in the Old Testament, where God gives us all these rules, the point of the rules is not showing you how to be a good person. The point of the rules is showing you can't lift the weight no matter how hard you try. You're never going to be good enough. You're never going to be holy enough. You're never going to be like the God that you're trying to get to. The weight is too much. And you may think you get close for a moment, but how long are you going to hold it up? Not very long, and pretty soon it's going to come crashing down, because the expectation, the thing that God is, the goal that we're aiming for is far heavier, far greater than anything that we could ever do on our own. And we may think that we look good on the outside. Sort of like the fig tree with all the green leaves. We may think that we're meeting our purpose. We may think we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, but if all we're doing is following rules, if all we're doing is trying to show how good we are, if all we're trying to do is earn our way to God to get to heaven on our own, what Jesus is trying to get us to see and to understand is that you will fall short. But if you have faith, you can have something better. If you have faith, the kind of faith that he says you can pray and a fig tree is going to die. The kind of faith that says you can say to a mountain, move, and it moves in the water. The kind of faith that says that you pray and whatever you pray, you get. That kind of faith. And it's not a faith in ourselves, is it? It's not in a faith in our ability. It's not in a faith in your ability. It's not in a faith in what we can do together. It's a faith in God. He says if you have that kind of faith, it leads to a relationship with God. And what changes after the resurrection is that where before, where you worshiped matters, now it doesn't. You see, before the resurrection, if you wanted to be close to God, where'd you have to go? You had to go to the temple, right? And there was a room in the temple, the Holy of Holies. And that's where the presence of God was. And only a few people could ever go there, and only on certain times and at certain places and under certain circumstances. And most people were cut off from the presence of God. But suddenly when Jesus dies and pays for sins and then rises again, defeating death, it doesn't matter where you are, God is there. That's why we do not call this the house of God or a sanctuary or something like that. You know what this is? It's a room. And we're thankful for the room, and we're thankful for the air conditioning. I've got an air conditioning over here that is mine, and I put it cold enough to freeze the worship team out because you don't want me to get hot and have to preach up here because it's bad news. So we're thankful for all of those gifts that God has given us, right? We're praise Him for that. We enjoy the facility. We enjoy the tools, but this is not where God is. God is wherever you are because you are the house of God. That means that God's here. He's in this parking lot. He's in the Walmart parking lot. And if He can be in the Walmart parking lot, He can be anywhere, right? Because it's not about the place any longer. It's about the people because we have a relationship with Him, and wherever we go, God's with us. But not only does the place not matter, the people don't matter. Before Jesus, right? If you wanted to be one of God's people, you had to either be born Jewish or you had to convert to Judaism. That was His people. That's who He worked through. It was only through that group of people. But now you know what He says? After Jesus says, you know what? All who call upon me will be saved. And it doesn't matter what country you're from. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter what you do culturally. None of that matters. What matters is, have I given my life to Jesus? Because the moment I do, He accepts me, He adopts me, and I have a relationship with Him. Can I just tell you a secret? You're not Christian because you're American. Again, that's not a disrespect to our country. That's just a fact. You're not a Christian because your parents were Christians. I love when I start talking to people and I invite them to church or something. Go, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. My grandfather was a preacher. Like it's always like everybody's got a grandfather, somebody like that in the family who's a preacher, and that's great. Like I hope one day my kids go, hey, my grandfather was a preacher. My grandkids, that would be weird if my kids said that, but I hope that one day my grandkids say that and they say it and smile, and it's a good thing. But the truth is that doesn't get them anywhere. What gets them somewhere is not because I'm a pastor, because I'm a Christian, that my kids are. No, they each have to come to Jesus on their own because God doesn't care about what people you're from. He cares, are you part of His family? And not only that, it goes even better because it's your performance doesn't matter after Jesus. You trying to keep up you trying to lift a bunch of weights and follow a bunch of rules and doing all the right things at the right times in the right way at the right place. Man, He says you can't do that. And it's not about your work, it's about His work. It's not that you can follow the rules, it's that Jesus followed the rules. It's not that you can perform or look how good you are. Again, it's a big curse I think that we have in our world is that we love to compare ourselves to each other because can't we always find someone worse than us? Some of you are pointing right now. Stop. That's bad, all right? So you know what? We can. We can always find someone that we're better than, but the comparison is not to each other. The comparison is to Jesus, and we all fall short. And Jesus goes, that's the point. I'm going to pick up the weight. I'm going to do the work, and you get all the credit for it. I'm going to do the work, and you get. Wouldn't that be great if like exercise worked that way? Hey, Ryan, you go work out. I'm just going to get stronger. Well, that would be awesome, but it doesn't work that way, and except for Jesus. He says you're never going to be good enough, so stop trying to act like you are. Stop putting that pressure on yourself. Stop thinking you have to do it. It's not a ritual. It's a relationship with Him. And that's why I think if Jesus could come and talk with us and sit down with us, he might tell us something like, and if you were to ask Him, well, what do you want me to do? How do I live my life? I think He would just simply say that faith is the focus. Not a faith in myself. You hear me? Not a faith in myself. Not a faith in my abilities. This isn't like positive thinking and you just got to believe in yourself and you can do whatever you want to do. No, you really can't. Because none of y'all are going to lift 1,000 pounds. And I have faith in some of you, but none of you are going to do it, okay? So it's not about believing in yourself. It's about faith in Jesus and who He is and what He did. And I think sometimes the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what are we putting our faith in? I mean, honestly, like what are we putting our faith in? Are we putting our faith in what I can do? Because there's always going to be a limit, isn't there? We're putting our faith in what people can do for me, because they're going to always let you down. Are we putting a faith in, that maybe one day my good will outweigh my bad? Well, it's not. What are we truly putting our faith in? Because you see, when faith is the focus, suddenly we realize that what God, all He wants from me is to make Jesus the focus of my life. To surrender, to say, Jesus, here's my life. You take it. You do what you want. I can't lift the weight. I can't be good enough. I can't get my act together. I keep messing up. Every time I try to fix something, I always make it worse. And so God's saying, look, that's the point. Stop. Jesus has already picked it up. Jesus has already done the work. Will you put your eyes on Him? Will you live for Him? Will you trust in Him? Because you see, when faith is the focus, that's a faith that saves. That's a faith that says that, God, I can't do it, so I need you to do it for me. And God goes, that's all I want. Isn't that crazy? That's all God wants for us, is just to admit we can't do it and let Him do it for us. I can't do it. I can't. So God, I need you to. And you know what's crazy? He said He already did. He already paid for your sins. He's already done the work. He's already beat death. He's already done it. All we have to do, it's like He's sitting there saying, here's the gift, just take it. And all we have to do is say, all right, thank you. Thank you. And He promises that He will give us a faith that saves. It's also a faith, not just a faith that saves, but a faith that produces fruit. Isn't that what He's talking about? Isn't that the whole point with the fig tree? Is like, we look at it and go, well, Jesus, why would you expect a fig tree to make figs out of fig season? And Jesus is going, well, the fig tree isn't the point. I want you to realize that if your life isn't producing fruit, maybe you don't really have faith. Because a faith in Jesus is a faith that's going to change your life. It's a faith that's going to change the lives of others. And what we often have is that, like, we want like Christmas Jesus, give me gifts. We don't want put my faith in Jesus, which is here's my whole life. And when I give Jesus my life, He changes me. And so He offers, when faith is the focus, it's a faith that saves. It's a faith that produces fruit, but it's also a faith that has power. I mean, He says some stuff there that we struggle with, don't we? Like, if you pray, the mountain will move. I've seen a lot of mountains. I've not seen many of them move. But he makes a promise that if we have the faith in him. Now here's the point, right? It's not the faith that moved the mountain for me. It's, God, what mountain are you moving through me? See the difference in that? It's not, oh, God, I don't like that, or, oh, God, that's in my way. No, it's like, God, what do you want to do in my life? And do you realize that you have more power than all of creation? Because the one who lives in you is the one who spoke, and out of nothing came everything. What I really think Jesus is trying to do in this crazy story where he curses this fig tree is he's trying to make us realize that if you do not have faith, you do not have anything. Because the one thing that's going to last, the one thing that's going to keep going when this world comes to an end is the faith that you have in Jesus. And some of us look like the fig tree. Right? Life is good and we look good and we're good people because we can point to all the bad people. We're not like those people. We're these people, so we're good. And we feel like we've got all these good things going, but if you were to pull back the leaves, what you would see is that it's only your work and it's nothing and it's empty and it's not bearing any fruit. That the truth is you're just lifting a few more pounds than some other person is. And Jesus has called us. Jesus wants us to stop trying to carry the weight of our sin, to stop trying to be good people, to stop trying to see what we can accomplish and just surrender and give our life to him and make him our focus. Because the moment Jesus is our focus of our life, there is no end to what he can do in and through you. So I ask you today, do you have a life-giving faith? The kind of faith that changes you, the kind of faith that changes those around you, the kind of faith that changes this world. We Christians are unfortunately too easily satisfied with just getting by in life. When God says, if you'll put your faith in me, I'll change the world. When you put your faith in me, I'll use you to make a difference. When you put your faith in me, I'll carry the weight for you. And here's what I think happens to so many of us is that we start carrying weights that we should not carry. The weight of like, am I good enough? Some of you, your whole life, someone told you you weren't good enough. And you've carried this weight, or maybe they didn't tell you were good enough and you felt like saying the same thing. And so your whole life, you've been carrying this weight over. You've been trying to pick up this thing of, look, I've got to show how good I am. I've got to show that I can accomplish. I've got to show that I can be something. And your whole life has been defined by you trying to be good enough. And you keep adding more and keep doing more. And you're tired and you're exhausted and you don't know if you can do any more. But you got to try because they can't be right. And maybe today you need to come to a place where you say, you know what, I'm not good enough, but Jesus died for me anyway. Some of us have been carrying the weight of your past mess-ups, your past failures. I mean, you blew it big. You blew it so big that you'd be embarrassed if I stood up here and told everyone what you did. And don't worry, I'm not going to if I know. But if I, some of you don't, I ain't even telling you, Stephen. It may end up in a sermon illustration. We're not going to do that, right? Because we messed up big time. And we know it. And we're ashamed of it. And it's like this, putting all of this on your back and trying to walk through life, and you keep going, gosh, if everyone knew who I was, if everyone knew what I did, man, how in the world would they ever love me, or what would they think about me, or what would they see? And you know who sees and knows God, and you know what? He saw it and knew it before you did it, and he still sent his son to die for your sins. Drop the weight. Some of you, the weight that you're carrying is, I got to keep my family together, or my business together, or my whatever together. And you're running around, working hard, trying to act like everything's fine and get everything together, make everything work, and make everyone happy, and make every situation perfect, or whatever it is, and you're trying to keep everything together. And you go and if you were to be honest, you go, I don't know if I could do this anymore. Would you drop the weight? Because you know who keeps the universe together? Your Father. He can keep your little world together. He can. Here's what I'm asking you. Do you have a life-giving faith? Guys, even if you can pick this up, I can put enough weight on to where you can't. And some of us just need to stop trying. Doesn't mean we don't do anything. Here's the cool part. It doesn't mean like saying I'm not going to try. It means I stop doing God's part. Right? I don't have to do God's part. You know who made me good enough to get to heaven? Jesus did. So I don't have to try to be good enough to get to heaven. You know who gives me value? The fact that Jesus died for me while I was still a sinner is what gives me value, not the fact that I can stand up here and impress someone. You know what makes my life worth living? It's not that I can keep everything together and have everything go smooth and be perfect in all that I do. You know what keeps my life together? That at the end of the day, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords loves me enough to hold me in his arms and say, you are my son no matter what. So do I have a part to do? You bet. You know what my part is? Just to keep my eyes on him. Just to keep my eyes on him and walk with him and go with him and follow him and trust him. And if I can just keep and sometimes that's enough. You ever remember being a kid in a crowd and you're trying to find your mom and dad, you get all separated and you're over there looking and looking and looking and then the moment you see them, all you go is like, oh, I got to go towards them. Well, your Father says, if just keep your eyes on me, that nothing in this world is going to overcome. So let me tell you what I want to challenge you to do when life feels heavy. Does it feel heavy ever? Feel heavy right now for some of us? When life feels heavy, are you ready? Step one, slow down. Stop trying to fix everything. Stop running around like you can solve all the problems. Slow down. Remember who you are. That you, if you've given your life to Jesus, that you are a son or a daughter of the Most High God. Remember who you are. Remember that he is always doing something. Look for what he is doing around you, in you, and through you. Man, when life gets hard, when it feels heavy, go, God, maybe I don't see it, maybe I don't understand it, but I trust that you're doing something, because if he loves you enough to send his son for you, don't you think he loves you enough to always do what's best for you? And so maybe we need to stop rushing around fixing things and go, God, what are you doing? So we slow down, we remember who we are, we look for what he's doing, and then are you ready? We move with him. God, I just want to step closer to you today. God, I just want to do what you want me to do right now. I'll worry about tomorrow when tomorrow comes, but what do you want me to do now? And we move with him. With him. Not in front of him, not next to him, with him. Because we know that when we put our faith, which really this is what faith is simply, my life is yours. Jesus, my life is yours. So I trust you. So I follow you. So I move when you move. Nothing more and nothing less. He's done the heavy lifting. All you high school boys are going to come up here afterwards and try to lift this. I know you did after the first service, right? Well, guess what? Jesus has done the heavy lifting. Just go with him. Just follow him. Let him do his part, and you enjoy the ride.